So you started your own company at what age?
I was 24.
And where did you get the money to capitalize it?
My mom gave me everything she had that was liquid. My dad gave me what he thought he could afford to lose.
One of the boards you're on is McDonald's, and it is said that you eat McDonald's every day. Is that true?
It's just about every day.
So in Chicago, did you ever play basketball with Barack Obama?
Yeah, several times.
And is he that good a player?
He's a very good player.
Would you fix your tie, please?
Well, people wouldn't recognize me if my tie was fixed, but okay. Just leave it this way. All right. I don't consider myself a journalist, and nobody else would consider myself a journalist. I began to take on the life of being an interviewer, even though I have a day job running a private equity firm. How do you define leadership? What is it that makes somebody tick? So you've been doing value investing for 36 years. What is a value investor?
A value investor is someone who's looking for bargains. We're trying to find stocks that are selling at a 40% discount to what we think their private market value is. We want to make sure it's got a low PE ratio, a strong balance sheet, and has the ability to really withstand the inevitable storms that happen in the stock market.
Now, Warren Buffett, is he a value investor?
He's the greatest value investor of all time. Sometimes people talk about whether Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James. There's no question when it comes to investing that Warren is the best ever.
Okay, but value investing, as I understand it, is easier done when the markets are down. When the markets are high, there aren't as many bargains. So what have you been doing the last 10 years because the markets have been very high?
Well, it's been interesting. We were able to buy some terrific bargains right around March of 2009 when the market was bottoming. And we got some great brands, companies like CBS and Royal Caribbean, CB Richard Ellis, true bargains. But as the markets recovered, some sectors have stayed really, really cheap. In particular, media. We love companies like Viacom and Madison Square Garden Network. Those stocks are still really cheap. Financial services companies, some that you know well, companies like Lazard or KKR. There are some sectors of the market that just seem to be totally neglected, even as the markets recovered.
All right, let's talk about the economy. The United States economy was in a recession that ended in June of 2009. And so now for about 10 years, we've been in a growth cycle. And it's one of the longest growth cycles in our country's history. But therefore, there haven't been a lot of depressed stock prices for this period of time. So are you kind of hoping that at some point there's a recession so we can get lower stock prices? You can buy more things at value prices?
We like to buy bargains. We like seeing sectors that are cheap, but we don't want to see a recession. All the turmoil that happens, the impact on our society and our citizens, a recession's not great for America.
So let's suppose I say, I watched you and you're a good value investor. I'll give you some money. What kind of rate of return can I expect from your products?
Well, over the 36 years, we've been able to compound money at roughly 11% a year. And that's something we're really proud of. Our Ariel fund has been around since 1986, so it's 33 years old, and it's actually number one in its category, going back to that period of time. But the neat thing is that we're one of those rare firms that has that 36-year record with the same portfolio manager in charge. I've been fishing in the same fishing pond of not only value stocks, but small and mid-sized valued stocks the entire time frame. We have a great team of people that I work with who've been with me. Some have been with me close to 30 years, some 20 years, some 15 years. So we're a team of grizzled veterans. We think we can replicate our performance in the future.
What is your best single deal that you can talk about?
I think over time, one of our best companies we've ever bought was Royal Caribbean. We were able to buy that in the height of the financial crisis when everyone thought that people would never cruise again. And that stock has gone up close to 15 times itself from the bottom. We still think it's an extraordinary bargain here today. A favorite of ours today is we find that we think that, as I said earlier, some of the media stocks that are really, really cheap. We're sort of optimistic that the Madison Square Garden Network will do really, really well when the Knicks finally come back and start to win championships again. It's going to be great for New York City and great for that stock.
So let's talk about how you got started. So you grew up in Chicago. Both of your parents were fairly prominent people as I understand it. Your father was in the Tuskegee Air Corps. What is the Tuskegee Air Corps for those who may not know?
That was the group of fighter pilots that were a part of World War II, the first group of African-American fighter pilots that had a chance to really participate fully in the war. Before then, people didn't think that African-Americans were qualified to fly aircraft in major wars. And so my dad was in the first group in the 99th Fighter Pursuit Squadron that went overseas and fought in World War II.
When your father came back after World War II, what did he do?
Well, he showed up at the University of Chicago Law School. He wanted to go to the best law school, and he thought the University of Chicago was the best. At first, they didn't accept him because he hadn't taken all the appropriate tests, and there were not many African-American students at the law school at the time. But he asked them if he could take a test, and they allowed him to take the test. He showed up in his captain's uniform, and I think the two things together, showing what a patriot he was and how good he did on what a great result he had on those tests, he was able to talk his way into the law school.
Okay, and your mother?
Well, he met my mom there the first day, which
Now,
is
she was the
terrific.
first female African-American at the University of Chicago Law School?
She was. She graduated in 1946, and my dad in 1948.
Okay, so he built a law practice and she built a law practice?
They both had their own independent law practices because back then you couldn't work in a big, large downtown law practice. My mom worked on divorces, and my dad did mostly real estate and bankruptcies.
You were the only child,
I was.
like myself, an only child, so the advantage of being an only child is your parents put a lot of time and attention into you. Was that a good thing for you?
It was. They focused everything on me. They got divorced when I was 3 years old, so I had two different lifestyles. My dad lived in a studio apartment not far from downtown, and my mom lived in more of a large house in Hyde Park, and they were different political persuasions. My mom was Republican, my dad was a Democrat. So I learned to sort of navigate two different worlds each and every week.
And you went to the University of Chicago's famous lab school, which is a school that is well known for, I guess it's K to 12?
It's a K-12 school. I got there in ninth grade,
Okay.
which was a terrific place.
And in addition to your academic pursuits, you were a basketball player?
I was.
And you went to Princeton and you played basketball at Princeton?
I was very fortunate to play basketball at Princeton for the Hall of Fame coach, Pete Carrill. He was a legend and someone who really transformed my life.
So you're the captain your senior year?
I did get to be a captain against
did
all
you-
odds.
Did you think you were going to be an NBA player?
Coach Carrill made it very clear that I had no hope to be an NBA player. He told me when I was a sophomore and I made the team, I was the last person on the team, the 15th person on the team. He said, "Johnny, you're legally blind, and I can't teach vision. You can't dribble, but you work so hard, we'll keep you around for a few more days."
So you graduated in 1980. What did you want to do?
I had two role models that were stockbrokers. One across the street from campus on Nassau Street, a guy named Mike Perkins at Laidlaw Adams and Peck. He helped me, showed me at Firestone Library where to go and research companies, how to find newsletters on the stock market. And then I had a broker at home in Chicago named Stacy Adams, who was the first African-American stockbroker on LaSalle Street. And I would go and sit with him and watch the ticker tape go by. So I thought if you loved the stock market like I did, you would become a stockbroker. And I was fortunate to be hired by William Blair and Company in Chicago. The managing partner at the time, Ned Janata, was a Princeton grad who played football at Princeton, and very close to Don Rumsfeld. And Ned helped recruit me there and gave me a great opportunity to start my career at a great firm.
Okay, so you stayed there 10 years or so before you were ready to do something else?
No, I stayed about 2.5 years.
That's enough time to learn the business?
I thought so. I had confidence in my strategy of investing in small and mid-sized
Okay.
undervalued securities. And as I said earlier, there were not many people doing that, so we thought we were kind of pioneers in the small value place. There were a few firms like Chuck Royce's firm, Ralph Wanger at Acorn Funds, a couple of others, but not many people
Okay.
like to focus in that area of the market.
So you started your own company at what age?
I was 24.
And where did you get the money to capitalize it?
Well, I went to, of course, friends and family. I tell people my mom gave me everything she had that was liquid. My dad gave me what he thought he could afford to lose. And after that, I went to some of my former clients, my high school buddies from the lab school, anyone that could give me $10,000 to help me start the company.
So how much capital did it take to start it?
Roughly a little over $200,000.
Okay, and that was what year?
That was in 1983.
And where did you get the name Ariel from?
You know, I love the way the name sounded. It was a character on a favorite TV show of mine. And I always said, if I have a daughter, I'm going to name my daughter Ariel.
Okay.
But I had the company first.
To keep up with what's going on in the world, do you use computers?
I actually don't use a computer.
Do you ever go on the internet?
I do have the internet on my phone, but I'm one of these folks that I've never actually had a computer. I've never turned the computer on.
Do you use emails?
I don't email.
So how do people get messages to you? Do they send a pigeon with a message, or how do they? How much are you managing now?
About $13.5 billion.
And you managed more at one point before the Great Recession, so it came down as was the case with many companies. In fact, how much money did you actually go down to? How low did you go?
We got under $3 billion.
So do you think you maybe should fold up shop when you're under $3 billion after you having 20 or so billion?
No, not at all. You know, we had learned, I think one of the lessons I learned from my father, and Melody Hobson, our president, agreed completely, was we should always keep money saved for a rainy day. And sure enough, we had a hurricane with the financial crisis. But we had saved enough capital in our company so that we can continue to pay our salaries and keep our key people in place during that tough period. And so that was really, really an important part of our approach. And then we bought our best stocks at really bargain prices during that period. And I think people like that we stuck to our guns and believed in what we were doing.
Now, some people say that it's impossible to beat the markets, and so therefore one should just buy index funds. In your case, you don't have index funds necessarily. You pick stocks. Why should somebody give money to a stock picker rather than just somebody who's just going to reflect whatever the S&P 500 is or whatever the index might be?
Well, I think that the reason to do that is there are talented money managers out there who can add value. And it's been proven over time that there are people who have that gift and that creativity and that vision to buy securities and outperform the markets. Now, it's hard to find them. They're few and far between, but I think it's worth the effort. And I think it's often I say it's like sports. You know, you root for your local teams, even though you know that half the teams are going to lose and half the teams are going to win. Everyone can't be the world champion every year, but you still like to be engaged and involved in the competitive pursuit of trying to find a championship or support a champion. I think it's the same with money managers.
To keep up with what's going on in the world, do you use computers?
I actually don't use a computer.
Do you ever go on the internet?
I do have the internet on my phone, but I'm one of these folks that I've never actually had a computer. I've never turned a computer on.
Do you use emails?
I don't email.
So how do people get messages to you? Do they send a pigeon with a message, or how do they get a message to you?
They can just call me.
So you're on a number of corporate boards, and you are legendarily very loyal to your corporate boards. One of the boards you're on is McDonald's, and it is said, I don't know if it's possibly true, that you eat McDonald's every day somewhere in the world. Wherever you are, you eat one meal a day at some McDonald's. Is that true?
It's just about every day. I mean, there's exceptional times when you're traveling where I can't actually get that done, but I love being at McDonald's. It's sort of my home away from home.
And did you do that before you were on the McDonald's board?
I've been doing that since I got home from college. I just love it there.
And you think it's very healthy for you?
It seems like it's worked out okay so far for me.
So far. So when you were interviewing to be on the board, I presume they interviewed to be on the board, did you mention this, and did they think this was unusual?
I still remember having a breakfast with Andy McKenna, who became the non-executive chairman of McDonald's, and Jim Cantalupo, the CEO, and it went marvelously well, because they could tell how much I love the brand.
So you used to play a lot of 3-on-3 basketball?
Yes.
So in Chicago, did you ever play basketball with Barack Obama?
Yes, several times.
And is he that good a player?
He's a very good player. He knows what he's doing. He's a little bit of an in-between size. He's sort of 6'2.5" or so.
But he can't dunk the ball, right?
I don't know about that.
Oh, you think he could dunk the ball?
I think he probably could.
Okay.
But, he's a little left-handed, but he's a very good player and makes clutch shots all the time. under pressure.
There was another player in Chicago, maybe better than even Barack Obama, named Michael Jordan. Did you ever play against Michael Jordan?
I did get to play against Michael around Chicago a lot. You know, he would be at different clubs, and you get to be on the court with him.
I think he was overrated.
No, he is, I think, the greatest player of all time.
So one time I understand you played against him and you beat him. The only person who's ever beat him on a what is it, a one-on-one game?
Yes, it was a very fortunate circumstance. I used to go to his senior flight school, which is a fantasy camp for people 35 years and older. And so every summer at the camp, he would challenge any camper to a short game of one-on-one, first to 3 wins. And since no one had beat him in the first 7 years of the camp, I think he was kind of a little overconfident. He would let people make a basket or two before he sort of clamped down and shut people down. Also, I had the advantage when I played him. I think he'd played about 15 campers before he got to me. So he was kind of tired. And so I was snuck up on him. And Coach Curl always said that even though I wasn't a good passer, I was a good one-on-one player. And so I had a couple of tricky shots. And the last tricky shot, right as it was about to go in, you could hear Michael say on the video, "Oh no." Oh no. And that was really fun.
Now, when one of the people you were playing basketball against, Barack Obama, told you he was going to run for president of the United States, what did you say?
I told him I thought it was a terrific idea. I can remember he came over to the office to tell me his plans, and I know sometimes that people wait a little bit more to get a little more seasoned, but I felt that he was really ready. I was totally confident in his ability to be the commander-in-chief, and so I encouraged him strongly to run.
Okay, and did you get involved in the campaign?
I did. I got to be co-chairman of the Illinois Finance Committee with a friend of yours, Jim Crown. We worked for Penny Pritzker, and that was a magical thing to be able to be involved on the ground floor. And then once he was elected president, I got to be co-chairman of the inauguration, and that was special. And what was really special, when he first got elected, we were the temporary transition headquarters at Ariel. So for 3 days, he was there helping to form the government, and
right.
Something you'll never forget.
Now, you helped him in his campaign. He's using your offices for the transition. Did he offer you a job? And if so, why did you not take it?
Well, we never really had that conversation. I love investing, and I love our business, and I have a great team, as I mentioned earlier, at Ariel, so there was never a thought that I would go to Washington.
Are you worried about a recession in the near future?
I'm not worried about a recession. Warren Buffett, always says that last century the Dow started at 66 and ended at over 11,000, and we had 2 world wars, a Great Depression, presidents assassinated. It was an extraordinary 100 years, but the market always marches back.
Now, in the philanthropic area, you obviously are a philanthropic leader in Chicago. What are the areas of interest you have in philanthropy?
What we've been working really hard on, David, is sort of the idea of how to solve for the wealth gap in our country between sort of the minority communities and the majority communities. And there's all this data that shows how the wealth gap's gotten larger, particularly between African Americans and white Americans. So we started a small public school over 22 years ago to teach financial literacy in a public school, to get young people prepared to be able to pick their own stocks and be able to navigate their 401k plan and all the things they need to do. Most recently, we created a program at the University of Chicago for minority students to work during the summer in the investment offices of major endowments.
Now, your parents were prominent leaders in the African American community in Chicago and prominent leaders in the Chicago community. So when you were growing up, or now that you live in Chicago, do you feel discrimination, or have you been able to bypass that?
I have to say that when people think about supporting minority business, it's typically around what they call supplier diversity, construction, catering, things that are bought through procurement. And my mom had this challenge when she was building her law practice, and my dad did too, that people just didn't think about hiring a minority lawyer to do their transactions. And the same thing when it comes to money management. We were the first African American money management and mutual fund company to start in the country's history. So when we went to see people, they had never thought about hiring someone that was African American to manage their money or to have our mutual funds in their 401k plan.
Now, you've mentioned a few times Melody Hobson. For those who may not know, she's the president of your company. You're the CEO,
Yes,
and she's the president. And she's somebody who also went to Princeton. Do you hire people that didn't go to Princeton?
we do. We do.
And Melody came from a challenged background, I think you would say, but she's now become very well known. Tell us about her a little bit.
Well, I met Melody when she was a prospective Princeton student. She was 17 years old, and we were trying to make sure that all the local alumni were interviewing all the prospective students. And we had a special event for all the admitted students, and Melody came, and I sat her at the head table because we could tell throughout the process that she was something really, really special. And so she sat next to a person who, Richard Misner, who convinced her not to go to Harvard and to go to Princeton instead. She then became a summer intern with us at Ariel, and then she spent a summer at T. Rowe Price in Baltimore. She had a great time, and she joined us when she graduated. So she says she's the only person from her Princeton class that has the same phone number 29 years later. And she is taking on more and more leadership of the company every year. She'll be my successor. And it's so wonderful to have a partner who's as tough and smart as she is.
Okay, now you have your finger on the pulse of the economy since you're looking at stocks all the time that are reflective of the U.S. economy. Are you worried about a recession in the near future?
I'm not worried about a recession. You know, we think long term at Ariel. As you know, our logo is a turtle. We believe that patience wins. And I always remind myself, Warren Buffett, always says that last century the Dow started at 66 and ended at over 11,000. And we had 2 world wars, a Great Depression, presidents assassinated. It was an extraordinary 100 years, but the market always marches back.
Are you not worried that the U.S. government, for example, has $22 trillion of indebtedness and we're adding $1.3 trillion a year? Is that a concern or not so much?
Not so much. Right now, as you know, inflation is staying very much under control. Interest rates are staying low, which means the stocks, I think, still are undervalued in this environment. So we think that we always have a way of adapting to whatever the challenge this country faces, and my confidence is really high that we will get through the problems that are always in front of us.
Well, in recent years, the income inequality in the United States has become very evident. Is there anything that you think government policymakers can do to diminish the very large income inequality we now have?
I think that one, government needs to do a better job of making sure that we have financial literacy in public schools, in particular in urban public schools, where we can get people exposed to the markets and get people coming out ready to make the right investment choices, be more effective entrepreneurs because they've been exposed to the markets at an early age. I think that's critical.
So what do you think your legacy will be, and what would you like it to be?
I think our legacy will be that we were able to build the most diverse money management firm in the country's history with an extraordinarily talented, diverse board of directors and deliver excellence in performance at the same time and be role models for others to get into the financial services sector because, as you know, this is such a lucrative part of our economy and hasn't been a very diverse part of our economy. So we want to show people that it can be done. And hopefully that'll inspire others who will want to follow in our footsteps and Melody's footsteps and be successful in the financial services industry.
No regrets about not going into private equity?
It never came up, and so we think about it from time to time, but really, again, we love picking stocks.
Okay, well, thank you very much for an interesting conversation. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.